If you'd like to learn about public key cryptography, this video is for you. In today's video, we're going to discuss what is public key cryptography, also called asymmetric cryptography. Then we will discuss where we may be using public key cryptography. And then we will describe how public key cryptography works. We're going to whiteboard it out, and we're even going to map out how digital signatures work also, which uses public key cryptography. So to begin, what is public key cryptography? And public key cryptography is a privacy and a security technology that enables you to have secure communication on the internet. For you to buy something from a website and know that website's secure, that's using public key cryptography. To send an email to a friend and prove that you are who you claim to be and that the message hasn't been changed along the way, again, is using public key cryptography. And public key cryptography is called asymmetric cryptography because it's not like symmetric encryption where we use the same key to send and receive. For an example, in symmetric encryption, which in many cases we use because it's very fast, if Nikolaus and Spiro want to send a message to each other, they use a single key in symmetric encryption. Now, the challenge here using a single key is before Nikolaus and Spiro can speak, they have to exchange this key. So how do they do it? Do they meet in person somewhere? And to get together, write it down on a little piece of paper, and then they hand that piece of paper of the key to each other? Now, if so, what happens if that paper gets lost? Now, what happens if Nikolaus never met Spiro before and someone who's supposed to be Spiro is not and pretends to be? So that always became a problem. Or does Nikolaus call Spiro on the phone and rattle off a key that's 100 characters and less? So distributing the key in symmetric cryptography has always been a nightmare. Imagine a company that has 1 million customers. Imagine having to distribute 1 million keys prior to enabling communication. So that was the challenge with symmetric key cryptography, is key distribution, which is why we ultimately got to a world of asymmetric cryptography. Now, asymmetric cryptography, specifically the public key cryptography type, uses a fair amount of infrastructure, and it's called the public key infrastructure, and that is all the people, all the policies, all the processes, all the technologies across the entire public key infrastructure, and that's a global infrastructure. Now, the key to remember, anytime we're using encryption, we're getting these three benefits. We're getting confidentiality. If Nikolaus and Spiro talk to each other, no one should know about it, so we're gaining that. Or no one should at least know what they're communicating about. Now, at the same time, if Nikolaus wants to connect with Spiro, they need to know that they are who they're supposed to be. If Nikolaus is spelling something, Spiro needs to be sure that he's actually buying it from the real Nikolaus. And that's the authentication piece. And ultimately, we're also making sure that we can't deny the conversation has happened later. So how does this work? Well, in order for public key cryptography, there needs to be some way to exchange the keys. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about as a rule. Public key cryptography is based upon asymmetric cryptography, which is very, very, very simple in the way it works, even though it often seems so complicated. So let's map it out. Let's work on it together. So let's talk about asymmetric cryptography or public key infrastructure. So in asymmetric cryptography, the public keys that you have are shared. The website can easily share its public key to you or point you to a place where it can post its certificate. That it will share its public key. It's totally safe to share your public key. Now, organizations will always keep their private key standard private. Now, what is so cool to me, and I'm not a mathematician, but I find this fascinating, is the key here is that these encryption keys, the public key and the private key, are mathematically linked to each other. Now, that doesn't mean you can figure out how to go from this key to this key, but these keys are mathematically linked. So what happens is we can share these public keys and we will keep our private keys private. So let me show you how it works, because this is honestly pretty impressive to me. especially when I first figured this out, many, many years ago. So if we have a sender and a receiver, what happens is we have the sender sends the message and encrypts this message with the recipient's public key. So I want to send some information. I encrypt it with the recipient's public key. The recipient then has their public key, and because their public key and their private key are mathematically linked, the receiver actually receives this message and then decrypts it with their private key. So let's make it a little more real. So let's say we have Nikolaos over here, and then over here we have Spiros. And they want to talk to each other. So what's going to happen first is Nikolaos wants to send a message to Spiros. So in this particular environment, what will happen is Nikolaos will create the message, and Nikolaos will encrypt the message using Spiros' public key. Now that message will get sent across the wire, the internet, what have you. And when it gets there, the message will be decrypted with Spiros' private key. And that's how they will go from here to here. Now, of course, Spiros wants to talk to Nikolaos, so what does Spiros do? Spiros now encrypts the message using Nikolaos' private key. Now that message is sent over there to Nikolaos, and then Nikolaos uses Nikolaos' private key, which is never shared, to actually decrypt the message. And this, realistically speaking, is the way asymmetric and symmetric communication works with each other. So now let's discuss how digital signatures work. Now, in a digital signature environment, let's say Spiro wants to send a message to Nikolaos. So what'll happen is Spiro will ultimately use the private key, and using that private key will create an actual hash value of the message. So what happens is that when the message is sent, it's going to have a hash. And that hash is using the private key to send the message. Now, what makes this work is when Nikolaos receives that message over here, Nikolaos is going to use Spiros' public key to actually decrypt the message. Public key, not private key. And then what's going to happen is it's going to compute its own hash. And if the two hashes actually match, then we know that the message was signed from Spiro to Nikolaos, and and Spiro is who he claims to be. So as you can see, public key cryptography used everywhere. You want to go to the website, you check the certificate, and that proves that the website is who you hope it to be for you to go buy whatever you're going to buy in your e-commerce website. And at the same time, when you want to send a secure email, we're using the same elements of public key cryptography to prove that you are who you claim to be, and that the message hasn't been changed along the way, and the message has been delivered. So now you understand the key basics of public key cryptography. What is public key cryptography, how public key cryptography works, how public key cryptography in many ways solves the problems with symmetric cryptography. And that's why we have asymmetric cryptography for so many things. Now, if you'd like to become a security architect or an enterprise architect or a cloud architect or an AI architect, we run 2 completely free architecture webinars per week. And on these architecture webinars, we'll go over the skills that you need for the various architecture roles, like a security architect or an enterprise architect. We'll talk about exactly what you actually do as various architects, and we'll tell you everything that you need to learn to get your first architect job, like a cloud architect job, security architect job, AI architect job, or enterprise architect job. And because these webinars are on Zoom, you can ask me any questions you desire about building an architecture career. And I've been an architect now for a little over 25 years, and I'll do anything I can to help you on these free webinars. So sign up for these free architecture webinars. The link is in the description of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to assist you in your IT architecture career, whether that be an enterprise architect, security architect, or cloud architect career. Hope to see you in a free webinar or another video. Take care.